Hello everybody, this is Grame Anderson, and today I'm going to be looking at Fire and Stone. In this game, each player takes on the role of a leader of a tribe leading early humans from the cradle of humanity outwards to spread across the globe. You'll be discovering new lands, gaining skills, and making settlements along the way. Now the gameplay of this one is pretty straightforward. You're going to move your scout meeple, turn over a tile, and see what happens. Along the way you can obtain invention cards, but at some point you want to turn those inventions into victory points. And of course there's a mysterious cave somewhere out there that when discovered will add a little something different to each game that you play. Now I picked this game up really for two main reasons. I'm really intrigued by the theme. I find the whole idea of the spread of humans across the globe just absolutely fascinating. The second reason is the designer. This is the same person that designed Carcassonne, a game I still go back to on a regular basis. So I had really high hopes for this one. So will this game be a game with a bright future, or one that should be left in the past? Let's get it to the table, see how it's played, and we'll come back with my final thoughts on Fire and Stone. So here's Fire and Stone set up for 4 players. Sort the discovery tiles into 3 stacks with 1, 2, and 3 on their backs. Place a tile in their matching regions in an area with a food icon. Shuffle the animal tiles and make 8 stacks of 3 tiles each and place them in their spaces. Randomly draw a cave card without looking at it and place it face down in the cave space. Shuffle the invention cards and draw the top 3 for display. The victory point cards are sorted with the highest, the 4, on top. The food tokens, bag tiles, and the game end card are placed off to one side. Now each player will take a tribe mat, 20 huts, 2 start gathering tiles, and this changes with fewer players, and finally 3 scouts. Place one of your scouts on the 0 space of the victory point track, 1 on the 5 hut space, and 1 in the starting space in South Africa. Each player gets a random task card, and finally the 2 gathering tiles you receive during setup go on your tribe mat here. On a player's turn, you will move your scout up to 2 areas away. You cannot start and end your movement on the same space, and you may not move into higher numbered regions until the appropriate number of huts have been revealed in the current region, and I'll talk a bit about that later. Once you have moved, you're going to be performing an action, and that will depend on what the area is that you stop moving in. If there's a face-down discovery tile, turn it face up and perform its discovery action. You may then perform the action of the underlying area. If you enter movement on a face-up discovery tile, or imprinted fire or settlement, you may perform the action of the tile or the printed fire or hut. You do not get to activate the discovery action of a previously discovered discovery tile. If you enter movement on an area that only has a food icon, you may gain 1 food as an action, provided you have the room in your bags. Because whenever you gain food, you must be able to place it on your tribe board on an empty bag. Let's have a look at the discovery tile's effects and actions. When you find a forest, you take 1 animal stack and place it on the area you are in. Then, as an action, you can then take all the animal tiles, look through them and take 1, return the remaining stack to the same area. If you find a fire, you gain 1 VP. As an action on a fire space, you can prepare any number of animals you have received from the forest action and turn them into something else, either food or a bag, depending on what the tile says. Return the animal tiles you want to trade in and collect the rewards. If you turn over a gathering tile, there is no discovery effect, but as an action, you can either take the tile or leave it. If you take the tile, you must place it on your tribe mat. Only gathering tiles of the same type can be placed above each other. If you already have 2 different types of gathering tiles and you want to add a third, you must fully empty 1 column and place the new tile in the starting position of that column. If you covered a card icon, you can either take one of the face-up invention cards or one of the victory cards. If you cover up the top space of a column, after taking 1 card, discard all the food tokens in that column. If you do not want to take the gathering tile and choose to leave it, you can take 2 food instead. If you discover a hut tile, you immediately place one of your huts from the supply in that area for free. Place this new hut on the food icon on that space. You will then place a hut token on the next empty space on the hut track. Then you must place your scout on a fire symbol somewhere in the same region. Now some of the hut spaces on the hut track, when covered, have special actions associated with them. The 3rd hut means scouts can now go into region 2. The 5th hut gives all players a 2nd scout. The 9th hut opens up region 3, and the 11th hut triggers the end of the game. If you end your movement in a settlement, which is an area with 1 more huts, you can build 1 hut for food. Now the amount of food you have to pay is equal to the number of huts currently in the area. And after you have built your hut, you must move your scout back to a fire space in the same region. You can find a secret stash discovery tile, and for this you just get 1 bag and 1 food, then you discard the tile from the game. The last discovery tile is the cave. When discovered, turn the cave card over, then immediately perform the discovery effect of the card in the top right, if there is one. The rules on the cave card come into effect right away, and all the new rules are listed on the cave card. And as an action, you can do whatever the cave card says. One last thing, the invention and victory point cards you gain while during the gathering action. When you take an invention card, place it face up in front of you. You can have as many inventions as you like, but can only have one of each named card. Inventions give you ongoing abilities, and you can always use all the visible abilities from your invention cards. When you take a victory point card, you must place it on the lower part of one of your inventions that does not already have a victory point card on it. This will cover up that ability, and you'll no longer be able to use it for the rest of the game. Now the end game is triggered when the 11th hut tile is placed. If you place that tile, take the game end card. All other players get 2 more turns where you get 1. So on your next turn you flip the card over, and once your turn again, the game is over. You will then do final scoring. You will score VP as indicated on your victory point cards. You'll gain 1 VP for each of your huts on the game board. You will then score 1 point for each hut where you have the relative majority. If multiple players have the same number of the most huts, then nobody gets any points. Finally, you add your points from your task card, and the player with the most points is the winner. Now let's get back to see what I thought about Fire and Stone. So, theme components. For the theme, I loved it. There are many aspects of this game I felt just worked so well for the theme. For example, the inventions. You got them when your tribe had enough food. That is, when they're not worrying about food, they have time to think about inventions. I thought that was clever. I also enjoyed the whole idea of spreading out of the tribe. It felt that it worked, and it made so much thematic sense. So overall, very pleased with the theme and how they worked it into the gameplay. For the components themselves, there's nothing special here, but then again, nothing really to complain about. There's good, solid components. All the discovery tiles are easily distinguishable from each other. The invention cards I found fairly straightforward, and the rules were relatively clear. They even give you an appendix with tasks and inventions on one side, and the cave card fact, which can be useful on the other side. As for the components, again, I'm pleased with them. So let's go on to the gameplay. And this is where things kind of go downhill for me. There are some aspects of the game I really quite enjoyed, but there are other aspects of the game which I just really couldn't get over that I felt just brought the game down for me. So let's talk about the good points for the game. For me, the basics of the game were not difficult. It's nice and simple. There's not a lot of rules overview. You just move and flip over a tile and see what happens. This game is very approachable. The game is also fairly quick. Plays in about 45 minutes. Even with 4 players, you're looking at under an hour. So again, great kind of welcoming game. I also like the fact of the cave aspect. The fact that at some point during the game there's going to be additional rule or other ways to score points. I also like that they were split into 2 levels of cave cards. So if you're playing with new gamers or younger gamers, you could slightly customize the game. They varied from super simple, like a fire that gives you 1 additional bag for every 2 animals prepared at that fire, to maybe a settlement where you can get food for building instead of having to pay food for placing a building there. I always found the caves one of the most enjoyable parts of the game. I'm always racing to area 2, as soon as it's open, to try and find that cave. It had the potential to mix up the game a little bit. I do wish that there were more of them, maybe 3 levels of caves, 1 for each area, but as it is, it's better than nothing. I also like that later on in the game you get an extra scout and everyone gets it at the same time. This starts to speed up their exploration piece of the game, as there are now potentially double the amount of discovery tiles flipped over on every person's turn. But by far and away, my favorite part of the game was the inventions and that victory point decision. First, the inventions. Again, I like these because they made me feel different from the other players. I had a special ability. Some of them were definitely more useful to me and how I want to approach the game, like the ones that increased my movement. I found immensely useful. Do I think all the cards are balanced? I'm not 100% sure. Many of them definitely seem to be situational or timing specific. That is, they may be useful early on in the game, but not so useful later on. But getting invention cards is almost always useful. Even the action on them is not, because you can use them for victory points. And that leads me to my favorite part of the game, and that's that victory point decision. The decision to cover up an ability and lose it to get victory points I found thoroughly engaging. You don't want to do that too early, but then again, the victory point cards are limited, and missing out on those 4 victory point cards can be tough. But is keeping that ability just a little bit longer worth the risk? I thoroughly enjoy that decision every time I could take a card. Take a new ability, or lose an ability, but get some points. So, those are the things I enjoyed in the game. Now let's talk about the things I didn't enjoy as much. First, my biggest issue was the randomness of the game. All the discovery tiles are random, and I don't feel that helped progress the game. When you turned over that you may not be useful to you, early on in the game, there's some excitement to that. But as the game progresses and in subsequent plays, it can just be, lackluster. Turning over a gathering tile that you can't use and having full bags mean you have nothing to do on your turn. Yes, I could get rid of the gathering tiles already on my player board, but I have no idea if there are others around me that, I've already started to collect. I would have preferred if the food was maybe more localized. Like in Area 1, you could only get mushrooms and carrots, but in Area 2, there are more nuts and maybe fewer mushrooms and carrots. The areas are differentiated in quantity, that there are more gathering tiles in Area 1 and 2 and more forest and huts in Area 2, but I would have loved to see more differentiation. Now, turning over Discovery Tile and finding you have no use for it, especially in the early game when you only have 1 scout and 2 bags, feels a little disheartening as you end up doing nothing on your turn. That's never a nice position to be in, and unfortunately it happens on a fairly regular basis. And why do you just get a random victory point for turning over a fire token? I have seen many games that were very tight in scoring and the winner was really decided by the number of fire tokens they flipped over, which is basically random, especially in a 2-player game. Now, the randomness of the inventions, sometimes the face-up inventions just don't work for you at the point in the game. And it can be frustrating, maybe other players get movement inventions and are able to get around quicker than you. And there's really no opportunity for you to get those same type of benefits. Yes, you can try and make the available inventions work for you. And later on in the game, getting those victory points is important, so making sure you have some inventions that you can put the victory points on is great. But I do wish that maybe there was a way to flush those invention cards, or something to change it up. And all this randomness meant that I couldn't really plan my game, or I never felt I could come up with a strategy. I couldn't say I was going to focus on settlements this game. It was random if I found them, or if I was even close enough to get a hut on them without several turns just going towards the settlements. Often people would hang around the settlement until either they got bored of getting food just to build another hut to try and get majority there, or the settlement maxed out, especially in a 4-player game. And finally, those initial task cards you get at the beginning of the game. There are 5 total in the box, and you know what people are going to go for is they're all just variations of the same thing. Get 1 point per settlement, you have the relative majority of beside a blank, beside the forest, besides the port regions, beside the mountains. It's not very interesting. Can you completely ignore them? Probably not, as they do give you a few points, but they're just not interesting in the game. So would I recommend this? No, ultimately I don't think I would. One of the biggest sins for me in a game is getting bored, and I found myself most plays of this game just bored at some point. I would have just, moved and turned a tile over. Was I looking for something? It doesn't matter because the tiles are all random. Now, I did like the ease of the game. The rule set is nice and simple. The cave was something else I enjoyed, as it did slightly change up the game, but I do wish that there were more of them. The fact that the game opens up and ramps up was fun. You get to explore more and get more scouts that helps open up the map. The theme in this game is great. I thought they integrated the theme well into the gameplay. The inventions were interesting, and the victory point card decision was the best part of the game. On the downside though, the randomness and the 2 frequent turns of doing essentially nothing really brought this game down for me. I wanted to be excited to flip over a tile, and too many times I was disappointed that I felt like I had wasted a turn. I also wish that there was more variety in both the discovery tiles, again, maybe have different types of food available in different areas, to deciding to keep a gathering tile more important depending on where you were. And I also wish that there was more variety in the cave cards and the initial tasks. Overall though, I'm going to be giving this game a 6 out of 10. It's definitely not a bad game. There are some really good ideas in this game, coupled with an enjoyable theme, but the fact that I and other players I played with were bored and disengaged with a substantial portion of the duration of the game makes this one that I really can't recommend. I'm sure some people will enjoy the game, but for me, it was a pass. And that's it for the moment. Until next time, thanks for watching.